My sister slammed my head for refusing to pay for her Botox, fracturing my skull. I woke in a hospital to hear Mom say, "Good." I filed a court petition, but before I spoke, she begged me. The first thing I felt when I woke up was a piercing pain in my head, as if someone was splitting my skull with a hammer from the inside. The light from the lamp seemed too bright, and I squinted, trying to figure out where I was. White walls, the smell of disinfectant, the beeping of some kind of equipment. A hospital. "She's coming around," I heard someone say from the side. I turned my head and saw a nurse writing something in a chart. My neck hurt with the slightest movement. "What? What happened to me?" I croaked. "You have a skull fracture, ma'am. You were unconscious for almost 9 hours." A skull fracture? I tried to remember what had happened, but my mind was blank. The last thing I remembered was being at home, cooking dinner. "Your family is in the hallway. I'll call the doctor," the nurse said as she left the room. My family. My mom and dad must be worried sick. And Violet? Suddenly, memories began to return, like frames from a broken film. 3 days ago, Violet came to my house. It was Thursday after work. I had just made myself dinner, buckwheat with a cutlet from the store, and was sitting at a small table by the window. My apartment was tiny, a one-room place on the third floor of an old Khrushchev-era building. I rented it for $350 a month, which was pretty much the cheapest option in our neighborhood. Violet came in without knocking. She had a spare key. She was excited, as always, when it came to her appearance. She was wearing a new blouse that I was sure cost at least $100, and she only worked a few hours a week at a coffee shop near the college. "Claire, I need your help," she said, sitting down on my worn-out couch, which I had bought secondhand for $50. "I finally signed up for Botox. I know, you think it's silly, but—" "Violet, you're 20 years old," I interrupted her, as I had done hundreds of times before. "Why do you need Botox at 20? You don't understand." She jumped up and went to the mirror by the door. "Look at me. I have wrinkles around my eyes and nasolabial folds like an old woman." I looked at my younger sister. Violet had always been beautiful. Long blonde hair, which she dyed at the salon every 2 months, large green eyes, regular features. Even now, without makeup, in simple jeans and a blouse, she looked like a model from a magazine. Boys had been chasing her since school, but she never believed in her own attractiveness. "What wrinkles, Violet? Where do you see them?" "Here." She began to point to her face with her finger. "And here, and here. When I smile, these horrible wrinkles appear, and my lips are too thin, and my chin is round. Violet, you look beautiful. It's all in your head." "Don't tell me it's in my head," she cried, turning to me. "You always do that. You say everything's fine. Don't worry, Violet, you idiot." "But I'm really ugly." We've had this conversation a million times. Violet had been complaining about her appearance since she turned 16. First, it was her ears. They were too big, then her nose, too long, then her lips, her eyes, her eyebrows. Every time I tried to convince her that she was wrong. But it always ended in an argument. "Remember how they laughed at me at school?" she continued. "They said I looked like a mouse." "That was in 7th grade, Violet." And only one idiot laughed, Stephen Miller. "Everyone else adored you." "No, they didn't. You just didn't notice." I got up from the table and walked over to her. Violet was looking at herself in the mirror with an expression on her face, as if she had seen a monster. All right, I sighed. How much does this procedure cost? $600, she said quietly, without turning away from the mirror. $600? Violet, that's half my salary. I worked as an administrator at the Aesthetic Plus Beauty Clinic for $1,200 a month. The job was boring. Answering phones, scheduling appointments, filing records. But at least it was stable. After paying $350 for rent, $80 for utilities, and $250 for food, I had about $500 left. I put $100 aside for a rainy day. $100 went on clothes and cosmetics, and the rest on transportation, medicine, and small expenses. But you can borrow. Violet turned to me. I'll pay you back. I promise. I'll find a job for the summer and work all day long. You said that when you asked for money for makeup classes. And when you wanted to buy that expensive lipstick. That was different. This is really important to me. Violet came closer, her eyes shining with tears. Claire, I can't live like this. I look at myself in the mirror and want to cry. Every day. Do you understand? Every damn day I hate my face. I felt sorry for her. Violet was really suffering. It was obvious. But $600 was a lot of money for me. Violet, I can't. I can barely make ends meet myself. But I'm your sister. Her voice rose, almost hysterical. You can always find money for what you need. When did I ever find money for junk? I only buy what I need. What about those shoes a month ago? $150 for shoes. I needed shoes for work. My old ones fell apart. And I got these on sale. What about the face creams? The haircut at the salon? The new dress? Violet. The cream was $15, the haircut was $25. And I got the dress on sale for $30. You can't compare that to $600 for Botox. Violet began to pace around my small room like a caged animal. She always did that when she was nervous. She couldn't stand still. You just don't want to help me, she exclaimed. You don't care how I feel. That's not true. I always support you. You support me? She turned to me sharply, her face red with anger. You always tell me I look fine, even though you know it's a lie. Violet, it's not a lie. It's a lie. She screamed so loudly that I was sure the neighbors heard us. I'm ugly. I know it. And you pretend that everything is fine. Why can't you believe that you're beautiful? Because it's not true. Look at me. She walked over to the mirror and started pointing at her face. These bags under my eyes, and these pimples on my forehead, and this horrible nose. I looked at her in the mirror. I didn't see any bags under her eyes. There was one small pimple on her forehead, which was barely noticeable. Her nose was normal, straight. Violet, you're exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating. She turned around and came up close to me. You know I'm ugly, but you don't want to admit it. Why? So I won't be upset? No, Or you're teasing me. You say I'm beautiful, but you're thinking, poor Violet, she's so ugly, and she doesn't even realize it. Violet, stop it! I never thought that. You did. You always did. Her voice became even higher, almost squeaky. You've always been better than me. Older, smarter, you work, and I'm just plain stupid, ugly Violet. I never thought I was better. You did. Everyone does. Mom and Dad, too. Claire is so smart. Claire is so responsible. Claire got a job. And what about Violet? Violet is just pretty, but even that's not true. She went back to the mirror and started looking at herself with hatred. So you won't give me the money? She asked suddenly, without turning around. I can't. I'm sorry. Violet fell silent. For several minutes, she just stared at herself in the mirror, while I stood behind her, not knowing what to say. Finally, she turned to me. There was an expression on her face that I had never seen before. Cold, quiet rage. You'll regret this, she whispered. Violet, don't be childish. Get a job. Save your own money. Childish? Her voice became dangerously quiet. Do you think I'm a child? I didn't mean that. Yes, you did. You always treat me like a stupid little child. And then she lunged at me. I didn't even have time to understand what was happening. Violet grabbed my hair with both hands and pulled me down with all her strength. I lost my balance and started to fall. And she, still holding my hair, pushed my head down and slammed it against the floor. The pain was so intense and sudden that I immediately lost consciousness. The last thing I remember is the taste of blood in my mouth and Violet standing over me with a strange expression on her face. Not horror at what she had done, not remorse, more like satisfaction. Now I was lying in the hospital with a fractured skull, and they told me that I had fallen on my own. The door to the ward opened, and my mom and dad came in. My mom looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing an old jacket that she had had for about 5 years. My dad was holding some papers, probably documents from the hospital. Claire, sweetheart, how are you feeling? My mom came over to the bed and put her hand on my forehead. It hurts, I replied. Mom, what happened? Why did Violet? Don't think about that now, Dad interrupted. The main thing is that you're alive. Dad had always been a man of few words. He worked as a truck driver and spent most of his time on the road. When he was home, he was more silent than talkative. Where is she? Mom and Dad exchanged glances. I could tell they were hiding something. She's at home. She's very upset, my mom said. Upset? I couldn't believe my ears. She almost killed me. Don't exaggerate, Claire. Violet said you had an argument and you fell and hit your head on the edge of the table. What? That's not true. She grabbed me by the hair and... Claire, sweetheart. My mom sat down on a chair next to the bed. You have a head injury. Maybe you got something mixed up. I looked at my mom and couldn't believe what I was hearing. They believed Violet, not me. Their own daughter, who was lying in the hospital with a fractured skull. I didn't get anything mixed up. She attacked me because I refused to give her money for Botox. Botox? Mom frowned. Violet didn't say anything like that. She said you were arguing over something trivial. What trivial thing? Mom, she wanted $600. $600 for what? Botox. I already told you. Mom looked at Dad, then back at me. Claire, Violet is 20 years old. Why does she need Botox? There was a knock at the door, and the doctor entered. A man in his 50s with a gray beard and kind eyes. His name tag read Dr. Wilson. How is our patient feeling? He smiled. Doctor, my daughter is saying strange things about how she was injured, my mother said. She claims that her sister deliberately hit her head on the floor. Dr. Wilson looked at me sympathetically. That's normal with injuries like this. There may be memory problems, confusion, false memories. The brain tries to fill in the gaps and can create scenes that don't exist. But everything should return to normal over time. I'm not making this up, I tried to shout, but my voice was weak. She really did it. I understand that it seems real to you, the doctor said gently. But you need to understand that your brain is not working at full capacity right now. Give yourself time to recover. How long will she have to stay here? My dad asked. A few days. We need to monitor her condition. If there are no complications, she'll be discharged at the end of the week. When the doctor left, my mom leaned over to me and whispered, "Don't make a mountain out of a molehill, Claire. Violet is your sister. She would never hurt you on purpose." But she... Enough! Rest Mom kissed me on the forehead, and she and Dad left. I was left alone with my thoughts and the terrible realization that no one believed me. My own parents thought I was lying or hallucinating because of the trauma. An hour later, I heard voices in the hallway. I heard Dad talking on the phone. Yes, a skull fracture. The doctor says she'll be fine, but she needs to stay in bed for a few days. No, she fell on her own. She had a fight with Violet and fell badly. Then I heard my mom's voice talking to someone else. No, nothing serious. The kids had a fight. You know how it is. Claire is saying strange things. But the doctor explained that it's because of the trauma. And then, when the conversation ended, I heard my mom say quietly, probably to herself, "Okay." One word, but it meant so much. Relief? Approval? I didn't understand what she meant, but that word stuck in my mind like a knife. Okay. The next morning, I was awakened by noise in the hallway. Someone was talking loudly, and I could hear nurses' footsteps. My head still hurt, but not as much as yesterday. I carefully turned on my side and saw flowers on the nightstand. Cheap chrysanthemums from the supermarket. From Violet, of course. Mom always made her bring flowers when she needed to apologize. Along with the flowers was a note. "Claire, I'm sorry. I hope you get well soon." Violet, even the note wasn't sincere, just formal words. I remembered how it all started. About 5 years ago, when I was 18 and Violet was 15, she suddenly changed. Before that, we got along almost perfectly. Of course, like all sisters, we sometimes quarreled, but never seriously. Violet was a cheerful girl who was always laughing and doing silly things. My mother often said that we were like night and day. I was serious and responsible, while Violet was carefree and lively. But then, something changed. Violet became withdrawn, started constantly looking at herself in the mirror, and complaining about her appearance. At first, I thought it was just normal teenage stuff. But it only got worse. Then, she started picking on me all the time. She said I always got more attention from our parents. She said they loved me more. At first, I tried to convince her that wasn't true, but Violet wouldn't listen. And indeed, my parents treated me differently. My mother always worried more about me, asked me more often how I was doing and what was bothering me. My father, although quiet, always found time to talk to me and give me advice. With Violet, they seemed more relaxed, less attentive. I never understood why. I thought maybe it was because I was older and had more responsibilities, or because I was always the better student, more serious. Violet was the typical younger daughter, a spoiled brat who everyone adored simply because she was cute. But Violet didn't understand that. Or maybe she didn't want to. There was a knock at the door and the nurse came in. The same one who had been there yesterday. "How are you, dear?" "Does it hurt?" "A little better," I replied. "Good. The doctor will be here soon to check on you." By the way, your sister came by early this morning and left some flowers. She said she was very worried. Did she say anything about what happened? The nurse looked alarmed. What was supposed to happen? Nothing, I replied quickly. I knew it was useless to try to convince anyone. When the nurse left, I thought again about how our relationship with Violet had changed. I remember one incident when I was 19. I had just started working at the clinic and was only in my second week. I came home tired but happy. I finally had a steady job and my own money. How was your first day? My mother asked, hugging me. Fine. It's hard, but interesting. Well done, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. My father came over and patted me on the shoulder. Hang in there, Claire. The first few weeks are always tough, but you'll get used to it. Violet was sitting at the table doing her homework. She looked up at us with an expression as if we were speaking a foreign language. No one ever tells me good job, she muttered. What for? My mother asked in surprise. I don't know. You just never say it. Violet, you're still in school. When you get a job, we'll be proud of you too. Yeah, right, Violet said, closing her notebook and going to her room. I didn't think much of it at the time. I thought it was just teenage angst that it would pass. But then it started happening more and more. When I turned 21, my parents threw a small party. Not a party, just a family dinner with cake. Violet sat there with a frown on her face the whole time. What's wrong? I asked her quietly. Nothing. Violet, tell me. You bought a cake from the store for my birthday. Mom baked one for you. I remembered. It was true that the cake for her 19th birthday was from the store. But that was because Mom had the flu and could barely stand up. You know Mom was sick. There's always an excuse, Violet interrupted. After that day, she became even more withdrawn. She started spending less time at home and found a group of girls from college with whom she spent most of her time. She only spoke to her parents when necessary, and even less to me. And when she started having complexes about her appearance, everything went downhill. Violet began demanding money for cosmetics, treatments, and clothes. At first, her parents gave it to her, but then they started refusing. The family didn't have much money. My dad was a driver, and my mom was a cleaning lady in an office. My salary helped, but not significantly. Then Violet started asking me for money, and I, like a fool, always gave it to her. I thought that if she felt beautiful, she would be happier. Maybe she would stop resenting me. But it only got worse. The more money I gave her, the more she demanded, and the more she hated me for having to ask. Do you think you're better than me because you have money? She said after another request. No, Violet. I just want to help you. Help? Or show me how generous and kind you are. No matter what I said, she was never satisfied. The doctor arrived after lunch. Dr. Wilson examined me, shone a flashlight in my eyes, and asked me to perform a few simple tasks. How's your memory? Do you remember everything from yesterday? Yes, I remember every detail. Good. What about the events that led to the injury? I looked at him closely. His eyes showed professional sympathy, but not belief. I remember everything. My sister deliberately hit my head against the floor. Claire, he said gently, I understand that you want to find an explanation for what happened. But sometimes accidents just happen. There's no need to look for someone to blame. But I'm not looking for someone to blame. I'm just telling the truth. The truth can be different, especially after a brain injury. After he left, I lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling. No one cared what I said. Everyone decided that I was either lying or delusional. And Violet was out there, playing the role of the caring sister who was worried about me. In the evening, my mom and dad came home. Violet was with them. She looked paler than usual, with dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing a plain black t-shirt and jeans, not the expensive clothes she usually wore. Her hair was uncombed, and she wasn't wearing any makeup. She looked like a martyr. "Claire," she said quietly, coming up to the bed. "How are you?" "Alive," I replied briefly. I, I'm so worried. It's all my fault." "Really? If I hadn't come, hadn't asked for money, you wouldn't have been upset and fallen." She said it with such sincerity that I almost believed her. Almost. But I remembered the look on her face when she saw me lying on the floor. It wasn't horror or remorse. It was something else. "Violet says you were arguing over something trivial," my mother interjected. "Can't you remember what it was?" I looked at Violet. She looked at me with her big, innocent eyes. "I remember. It was because of the Botox that cost $600. "Claire," Violet said quietly. "What Botox?" "I didn't ask you for that." "You didn't?" "No. I asked you to lend me $50 for college textbooks. You said you didn't have it. I got upset. We argued. And then you stood up abruptly, caught your foot on the rug, and fell." I looked at her and couldn't believe it. She lied so calmly, so convincingly, that even I doubted myself for a moment. "Violet, that's not true." "Claire, honey." Mom took my hand. "Maybe you really did get something mixed up. The doctor said it was normal." "I didn't get anything mixed up." "Then why is Violet saying something different?" Dad interrupted. I looked at all of them. Mom looked at me with concern. Dad frowned. And Violet? Violet stood there, looking as if she was the one who had suffered the most. "I don't know why she's lying." "Ask her." "I'm not lying," Violet said quietly, her eyes filling with tears. "Claire, why are you doing this to me? I understand you're sick, but I'm not sick." "Children, don't fight," my mother intervened. "Claire, maybe this isn't the right time to talk about it. Rest and get well. We can discuss everything else later." When they left, I was left alone. Before leaving, Violet came up to me again and said quietly, "I'm really worried about you. I know you don't believe me now, but it's true." After they left, I couldn't sleep for a long time. Something was bothering me, some detail I couldn't remember. And then, suddenly the memory came back to me. It was 3 years ago. Violet was finishing school, and I had been working at the clinic for a year. One day I came home and saw her rummaging through my mother's desk. "What are you doing?" I asked. Violet flinched and quickly closed the drawer. "Looking for tape." I needed to tape something. "In your mother's desk?" "The tape is in the kitchen." "I forgot," she said, quickly walking past me and leaving the room. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now I remembered how strange she had acted. It was as if she had been caught doing something forbidden. A few months after that incident, Violet started treating me completely differently. Not just cold or hurt, but with real hatred, as if I had done something terrible to her. I shook my head, trying to remember something else. But the pain in my temples grew worse, and I had to stop. The next day, my parents came to see me again, this time without Violet. "How are you?" my mother asked. Better. I think I'm being discharged tomorrow. Good. Claire, we need to talk. My father sat down on a chair. My mother remained standing. They both looked serious. About what? About Violet. And about what you're saying. I'm telling the truth. Claire. Dad leaned forward. Violet is your sister. She would never hurt you on purpose. You know that? Apparently not. You're accusing her of hitting you. Those are serious accusations. So what? If you really believe that, maybe you should see a psychologist? Mom said gently. A psychologist? Do you think I'm crazy? No, sweetie. But brain trauma can affect perception. You may need help sorting through your memories. I looked at them and realized that they really thought I was crazy, that I was making up stories because of my trauma. What if I don't want to see a psychologist? Then we ask you to at least not spread these stories around. Violet is really hurting because of what you're saying. Violet is hurting? Yes. She feels guilty about what happened, even if it was an accident. I see. After they left, I finally understood. If I wanted to be believed, I needed proof. And the only way to get proof was if Violet did something like that again. And for some reason, I was sure she would. Because what happened in my apartment wasn't a fit of rage. It was something that had been brewing for a long time. Something she had decided to do after many years of hidden anger. The only question was when it would happen again. And whether I would be ready. At the end of the day, I was visited by a colleague from work, Linda, a woman in her 40s who worked as a senior nurse at the clinic. How are you, dear? She asked, placing a bag of fruit on the bedside table. A little better. What happened? Your parents said you fell at home? I looked at her closely. Linda was a smart woman who had worked in medicine for over 20 years. Maybe she would believe me. Linda, can I ask you something? Sure. If someone got a fracture like that from a fall, what would it look like? Linda frowned. What do you mean? Well, suppose someone tripped over a rug and fell, hitting their head on the floor. What kind of injury would that be? It depends on many factors. But usually, in a fall like that, people have time to put their hands out to break their fall, and the injury is less serious. What if someone deliberately hit their head on the floor? Claire, why are you asking me this? I told her everything. Linda listened attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions. And no one believes you? She asked at the end. No one. Linda was silent for a few minutes. You know what, sweetie? She finally said. I've been working in medicine for a long time. And I've seen a lot of different injuries. What happened to you? It really looks more like intentional than an accident. Really? Really, but it's impossible to prove. The only witnesses are you and your sister. And she says otherwise. So, what should I do? Be careful. If your sister is really capable of this, she may do it again. When Linda left, I thought about her words for a long time. Finally, someone believed me. That was something. I also thought about what Linda had said. Violet might do it again. And I had to be ready. I was discharged from the hospital 5 days later. My head still hurt, especially in the morning. But the doctor said it was normal and would go away with time. Dad came to pick me up in his old Honda, which rattled over every bump. Home? He asked when I got in the car. Yes. We were silent on the way home. Dad had never been a talkative man. And after what had happened, He became even more withdrawn. I could see him glancing at me in the rear view mirror from time to time. He was obviously worried, but didn't know what to say. My mother and Violet were waiting for me at home. My mother hugged me and held me for a long time, while Violet stood to the side with flowers in her hands, this time more expensive than the ones at the hospital. "How are you, sweetheart?" my mother asked, stepping back and looking me in the eyes. "I'm fine. A little tired. Go rest. I'll make your favorite dinner." Violet came over and handed me the flowers. "These are for you," she said quietly. "I hope you're not mad at me for the fight." The fight. Not for almost killing me, but for the argument. "Thank you for the flowers," I replied, taking the bouquet. Violet looked genuinely upset. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying, and her hair was uncombed. She was wearing an old t-shirt that she usually only wore at home, the image of a remorseful sister. "Claire," she took my hand. "I'm so sorry about what happened. If I had known you would fall like that." "Violet, that's enough," my mother interrupted. "Let's not go over this again. The main thing is that it's over." I looked at Violet, then at my mother. Everyone was playing the same game. A terrible accident that no one was to blame for, and I was supposed to forget and forgive. "I'm going to lie down," I said. In my childhood bedroom, I lay on my bed and stared at the ceiling. Nothing had changed here since I left my parents 2 years ago. The same posters on the walls, the same furniture my mom bought when I was 14. Even the toys on the shelf. Stuffed bears and a doll I got for my 10th birthday. I remembered how, when I was 10, I had dreamed of that doll. It cost $40, a huge amount of money for our family. But for some reason, my parents found the money. And for Violet's birthday, who was 3 years younger, the gifts were always simpler. I didn't pay any attention to it at the time. I thought that was how it should be. Older children get more expensive gifts. But now, lying in that room, I began to realize that maybe Violet was right. Maybe my parents really did treat me differently. The next day, I went to the police station. It was small and smelled of coffee and cigarettes. A woman was standing in front of me, complaining about her neighbors playing loud music. When it was my turn, I was seen by Sergeant Brown, a man in his 50s with tired eyes. "I'm listening," he said, without looking up from his papers. "I want to report an assault." Now he looked at me closely. "Go ahead." I told him everything from the beginning. About the request for money, about the refusal, about how Violet grabbed me by the hair and slammed my head against the floor. The sergeant listened, occasionally writing something down. "Were there any witnesses?" he asked at the end. "No, just the two of us." "Do you have any medical records?" I took out the folder with the hospital records. "Skull fracture." He nodded. "Serious. What does your sister say?" "She says I fell." "I see. Are you willing to testify under oath?" "Yes." Sergeant Brown filed a report and gave me a copy. "A detective will contact you within a week. They will interview everyone involved in the incident. When I got home, I saw my whole family sitting at the kitchen table. Mom, Dad, and Violet. They all looked at me as if I had done something terrible." "Where were you?" Mom asked. "Running errands." "What errands?" my dad interrupted. I sat down at the table across from them. "I filed a police report." Violet turned pale. Mom jumped up. "What have you done, Claire?" "What I should have done from the start." "But we agreed it was an accident." Mom was on the verge of tears. "We didn't agree." You decided it was an accident. I've always told the truth. Dad sighed heavily. Claire, do you understand what this means? What? If this goes to court, the whole family will be in the press. Violet could go to jail. So what? How can you say that about your sister? My mother shouted. The sister who almost killed me? Violet, who had been silent until then, suddenly began to cry. Not loudly, but quietly, so that tears simply rolled down her cheeks. Claire, she whispered, why are you doing this to me? I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just telling the truth. But you know I didn't mean to hurt you. It was an accident. No, it wasn't an accident. It was. Violet raised her head, and I saw that her face was contorted with grief. I just got upset and pushed you. I didn't think you would fall so badly. Interesting. Now it's no longer, you fell yourself, but I pushed you. The story began to change. Violet, Dad said gently, you said Claire fell on her own. I didn't want you to be angry with me, she sobbed. That's why I said she fell on her own. But I only pushed her a little, honestly. Mom and Dad looked at each other. See? Mom said to me. Violet confessed. She pushed you, but not on purpose. She didn't mean to hurt you. Of course not, I replied sarcastically. You just wanted to knock my head on the floor. Claire, please. Violet stood up and came over to me. Take back the report. I swear it will never happen again. Never again? Never. I'll go to a psychologist. I'll learn to control my anger. Just take back the report, please. She knelt down next to my chair and grabbed my hands. Claire, you're my only sister. I can't live knowing that you hate me. And then, something inside me broke. Violet was crying so sincerely, so desperately, that I almost believed her. I almost believed that she really didn't want to hurt me. Don't cry, I said, wiping the tears from her face. Take back the statement? I looked at my parents. My mom was looking at me pleadingly. My dad nodded his head as if to say, do the right thing. Okay, I sighed. But you're really going to see a psychologist. I will. I promise. And you'll never raise your hand to me again. Never, Claire. Thank you. You're the best sister in the world. She hugged me so tightly that I could hardly breathe. And at that moment, I felt like everything was going to be okay, that we were really sisters, and that Violet understood her mistake. The next day, I went to the police station and withdrew my statement. Sergeant Brown looked at me disappointedly. Are you sure? He asked. Yes. My sister and I have made up. As you wish. But if something like this happens again, come back immediately. Don't wait. I promised. The first 2 weeks were peaceful. Violet did indeed make an appointment with a psychologist, a woman named Dr. Campbell. She talked about how hard it was to work on her self-esteem and anger management issues. Dr. Campbell says I'm depressed, she said at dinner, and I have an inferiority complex. But we're working on it. Good for you, said Mom. The important thing is not to give up on treatment. I won't. I want to be better. Violet really did seem different, less nervous, more open. She even stopped constantly looking in the mirror and complaining about her appearance. And then, it all fell apart in an instant. It happened 3 weeks after I left the hospital. I came home from work exhausted. I had been answering calls from dissatisfied clients all day. One was yelling that her fillers had been done wrong. Another was complaining about an allergic reaction after a cleaning. Violet was in the living room watching TV. My wallet was in the kitchen where I had left it that morning. "Hi," she said, without looking up from the screen. "Hi." I went to the kitchen to get a drink of water. I picked up my wallet to see how much money I had left before payday and froze. In the morning, I had $230, money I had been saving for a new laptop. Now, there was 80 in my wallet. "Violet," I called. "What?" "Come here." She reluctantly came into the kitchen, still looking over her shoulder at the TV. "The money's gone from my wallet." "What money?" She didn't even flinch. $150. "Maybe you spent it somewhere and forgot?" "Violet, I remember every penny. Did you take it?" Now, she looked at me directly, and in her eyes, I saw the same cold rage I had seen 3 weeks ago in my apartment. "What do I want with your pathetic money?" "I don't know. Why did you take it?" "I didn't take it." "Then where is it?" Violet turned abruptly and headed for the kitchen door. I grabbed her arm. "We're not done talking." "Let go of me. Give me back the money." "What money? I didn't take anything." She jerked away, trying to break free, but I held her wrist tightly. "Violet, those are my savings. I need a laptop for work." "I don't care about your laptop." "Then why did you take the money?" "I didn't take your money," she shouted so loudly that my ears hurt. "Then where did it go?" Violet stopped struggling and looked at me with such hatred that I felt uncomfortable. "You know what, Claire?" she said quietly but clearly. "I'm tired of pretending we're a family." "What?" "You heard me. I'm tired of pretending you're my sister." "Violet, what are you saying?" She laughed, but it was an unpleasant, almost hysterical laugh. "Don't you know? Don't you really know?" "What don't I know?" "That you're not my sister. You're adopted." The words hit me like a punch in the solar plexus. I let go of her hand and took a step back. "What did you say?" "You're adopted, Claire. Mom and Dad took you from an orphanage when you were 5 years old. Your real parents abandoned you because they were alcoholics." That's that's not true." "It's true." I found the adoption papers 3 years ago. They were in Mom's desk where I was looking for tape. I remembered that day. Violet rummaging through my mother's desk and acting so strangely when I caught her. "That's why I started treating you so harshly," she continued. "I found out you weren't my real daughter. And Mom and Dad always loved you more. They loved their adopted daughter more than their own." "Violet, stop!" "No, I won't stop." She came closer. "All these years, I thought there was something wrong with me. Why they loved me less. But it turns out they just felt sorry for you. Poor little orphan, abandoned by alcoholic parents." I felt the world shaking beneath my feet. Everything I believed about myself and my family turned out to be a lie. "I did take the money," Violet said, almost cheerfully. "I bought myself the shoes I've wanted for a long time. You can call it stealing, but I think I just took what was mine. After all, Mom and Dad saved money on me so they could spend it on you." I didn't know what to say. My head was spinning, like after an explosion. "Where are your parents?" I finally managed to ask. "They went to the store. But they'll be back soon. Do you want to ask them?" Violet smiled as if it were a funny game. I went into the living room and sat down on the sofa. My legs were shaking. Violet followed me. "You know what's interesting?" she said, sitting down in the armchair opposite me. "They only took you because my mom couldn't get pregnant. A year after I was adopted, she suddenly got pregnant with me. The doctors said it happens a lot. The stress of infertility goes away, and you get pregnant on your own. Enough. So, I was supposed to be your only daughter, and you're a mistake. An accident. Violet, stop it. Why? Don't you like the truth? I didn't like living a lie all these years. The door opened and Mom and Dad came in. They were carrying bags of groceries and talking about something. When they saw us, they fell silent. Why are you so sad? Mom asked. Mom, I said, looking her straight in the eyes. Is it true that I'm adopted? The bags fell out of my mom's hands. Apples rolled across the floor and a jar of tomato sauce rolled under the sofa. Claire, my mom whispered. Is it true? My dad sank heavily into a chair. Who told you? Violet? Is it true? Yes, my mother said quietly. It's true. I closed my eyes. So it wasn't Violet's revenge or a lie. It was the truth. Why didn't you tell me? We wanted to tell you when you were older. My mother began to gather the groceries. But you were so happy. We were afraid you'd be upset. Upset? I got up from the sofa. I found out the truth about myself from my sister, who hates me because I'm not her real sister. Violet, Dad said sharply, looking at his younger daughter. Why did you do that? Violet shrugged. She had to know the truth. It wasn't your place to tell her. Whose business was it? Yours? Were you going to tell her someday? Or just let her live a lie? Mom started crying, quietly wiping her tears with her sleeve. Claire, sweetheart, we love you. It doesn't matter if you're our biological daughter or not. You're our daughter. Your favorite daughter, Violet added. Violet, stop, Dad warned. No, I won't stop. She has to know the whole truth. Mom, tell her why you always loved her more. Tell her how you neglected me for her. We didn't neglect you, Mom said, but her voice was uncertain. You didn't neglect me? Who always got the more expensive gifts? Who always came first in your plans? Who? Enough! Dad shouted so loudly that everyone fell silent. Violet, go to your room, now. No, go. To your room. Violet stood up, but before she left, she looked at me one last time. Now you know the truth, Claire. I hope it makes you feel better. When she left, the three of us remained in the living room. Mom was crying, Dad was staring at the floor, and I sat there, trying to understand what I was feeling. Tell me everything, I said finally. About my real parents, about how I came to live with you. Everything. And Mom started talking. Mom talked for a long time about how she and Dad had been trying to conceive for 5 years, how they had undergone every possible test and treatment, about how they had finally decided to adopt a child. We wanted a baby, my mother said, wiping away tears. But there were almost no babies at the shelter. And then, the social worker told us about you, a 5-year-old girl whose parents had abandoned her because of alcoholism. What were their names? I asked. Jennifer and Michael Harrison. They lived in a trailer park outside of town. Your father worked at a gas station, and your mother didn't work. They both drank heavily. I tried to imagine them, but I couldn't. I had no memories of my life before the age of 5. What happened to them? I don't know. After you were taken away, we never heard from them again. Dad finally looked at me. Claire, you have to know that we didn't take you out of pity. We wanted you. And when we saw you at the shelter, we knew right away that you were our daughter. And then, Violet was born, I said. Yes. A year after you were adopted, I unexpectedly became pregnant. The doctor said that this often happens after the stress of infertility is relieved. And did you start loving me less? No, my mother said sharply. We loved you both equally. It's just, maybe we did pay more attention to you, not because we loved you more, but because we were worried about you. Worried? You came to us as a traumatized child, Claire. You didn't speak for the first 6 months. You wet the bed. You were afraid of loud noises. The social worker warned us that children from dysfunctional families can have problems adjusting. I listened and tried to understand. So all that special attention that made Violet hate me wasn't a sign of love, but an attempt to heal me. We wanted you to grow up a happy, healthy child. My mother continued. Maybe we tried too hard. Maybe we really neglected Violet. Why didn't you tell me the truth earlier? We were afraid, my dad said quietly. We were afraid you'd think we didn't love you as our own daughter. I got up from the sofa. I need time to think about all this. Claire, my mother grabbed my hand. You're not leaving, are you? You're not leaving us? I don't know. Right now, I don't know anything. I went to my room and lay there until morning, staring at the ceiling. My entire identity had crumbled in one night. I no longer knew who I was. The next few weeks were difficult. I returned to my apartment, but often lay in bed doing nothing. My colleagues at work noticed that something was wrong, but I couldn't tell anyone. I didn't talk to Violet at all. She called several times, but I didn't answer. My mom called every day, begging me to come home and talk, but I wasn't ready. My dad came to see me a week later. He sat in my small kitchen, drinking coffee and staring out the window. How are you? He asked. Terrible. I understand. We were silent for a long time. Claire, he said finally, I know you're angry with us right now, and you have every right to be, but I want you to know that you've always been my daughter from the very first day. Even when Violet was born, even then, Violet is my flesh and blood, but you are my daughter. There's a difference. I looked at him. Dad had never been a man of many words, but when he spoke, he always meant what he said. Does Violet understand the difference? No. And that's our fault. We should have told you both the truth much earlier. After he left, I felt a little better. Not much, but a little. A month after the truth came out, my mother called me. She sounded worried. Claire, can you come over? Something happened to Violet. What? Come over and you'll see. I drove to my parents' house with a bad feeling. My mother met me at the door with tears in her eyes. Where is she? I asked. In her room. She hasn't come out for 3 days. I went up to the second floor and knocked on Violet's door. Violet, it's me. Go away. Mom said something happened to you. Mom says a lot of things. I turned the knob. The door wasn't locked. What I saw stunned me. Violet was sitting on the bed, her face covered with her hair. But when she looked up, I almost screamed. Her left cheek was swollen and had a strange purple hue. There was a huge bruise under her left eye. And where her lips should have been, there was something horrible. They were enlarged to an unnatural size and looked asymmetrical. My God, I whispered. What happened to you? Nothing, she said, lowering her head again. Violet, tell me. She was silent for a long time, then said quietly, I had a procedure done. What kind of procedure? Fillers in my lips. And Botox. and something for my cheeks. Where? It doesn't matter. I sat down on the edge of the bed. Violet, show me your face. She reluctantly raised her head. What I saw was even worse than it had seemed at first. Her lips weren't just enlarged, they were distorted. One side was much larger than the other. There were marks on her cheeks where the injections had healed incorrectly, and around her eyes were strange indentations. Who did this? One acquaintance. He said it was cheaper than at a clinic. What kind of acquaintance? I met him online, on a beauty forum. He said he was a doctor, but he works privately. Cheaper. Violet, did you have plastic surgery in a basement? She nodded. How much did you pay? $700 for everything. $700. In a normal clinic, that many procedures would cost at least $3,000. Where did you get $700? Violet lowered her head again. I saved up. You saved $700 in 3 weeks working in a coffee shop? Violet, don't lie. I borrowed it from friends. What friends? She didn't answer. Okay, I sighed. The main thing right now is not where the money came from, but what to do about it. You need to see a doctor. I won't go. Violet, look at yourself. You could have an infection, tissue necrosis, anything. I won't go, she cried. Everyone will laugh at me. Better laughter than death from blood poisoning. Mom was standing in the doorway listening to our conversation. Claire is right, she said. You need to see a doctor. We don't have money for a doctor, Violet replied. A real doctor. Mom looked at me reproachfully. Claire, you work at the clinic. Can you arrange something? I looked at Violet, then at Mom. I can try, but it'll be expensive, even with a discount, at least $2,000. We don't have that kind of money, my mother said quietly. Claire, Violet grabbed my hand. Can you lend me some? I'll pay you back. I promise. I looked at her distorted face and felt a mixture of pity and irritation. On the one hand, she had brought herself to this state. On the other hand, she was still my sister, even if we weren't related by blood. I'll think about it, I said. Claire, please. I can't live like this. I said I'll think about it. I really did think about it for the next few days. $2,000 was all I had saved up over the last year. Money I had been saving for a vacation, a new computer, a rainy day. On the other hand, Violet really needed help. Her face was getting worse. The swelling wasn't going down, it was getting worse. Finally, I made up my mind. No, I told Violet on the phone. I'm not giving you the money. What? Why? Because you got yourself into this mess. Because you stole my money. Because you never pay back your debts. But I'm going to die. You're not going to die. But next time, think before you go to shady doctors. Claire, I beg you. I'll do anything you want. All I want is for you to leave me alone. I hung up the phone. A week later, the clinic director, Mrs. White, called me into her office. There were some documents on her desk. Claire, sit down. We need to talk. I sat down in the chair across from her desk. What's wrong? We're short on cash. $4,000. My hands went cold. What do you mean, short? The money that clients paid in cash for services didn't make it into the cash register over the last week. That's impossible. I write everything down and give out all the receipts. Miss White opened a folder. Look, here are the receipts for the services you processed, and here is the cash register tape. The amounts don't match. I looked at the documents. Indeed, the receipts were 4,000 more than in the cash register. I don't understand. I always hand over all the money to the cashier. Claire, no one else works with cash except you. All payments go through your hands. But I didn't take any money. Then how do you explain the shortage? I didn't know what to say. It was impossible. I always counted the money carefully at the end of the day. Maybe one of the customers paid by card, and I forgot to change the payment method in the system. We checked all the card payments. Everything matches. Mrs. White leaned forward. Claire, I've known you for 2 years. You've always been an honest employee, but the facts speak for themselves. What does that mean? You're fired, and we have to report this to the police. I sat there and couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was being accused of stealing $4,000. Miss White, I swear I didn't take the money. Maybe one of the other staff members. The staff doesn't have access to cash. Only you. I remembered how Violet came to the clinic last week. She said she wanted to apologize for everything that happened. She brought me lunch. Sandwiches from my favorite coffee shop. Eat, she said. I'll wait in the reception area. I ate while Violet sat in the visitor's chair and leafed through magazines. It was a familiar scene. But then I remembered. When I came back from my lunch break, Violet was gone. And for some reason, the cash register wasn't completely closed. Can I make a call? I asked. Sure. I dialed Violet's number. Hello? She answered on the first ring. Violet, where did you get the money for the operation? What? What are you talking about? I'm being accused of stealing $4,000 from the clinic. Did you take it by accident? Pause. Are you crazy? Why would I want your money? For the surgery. You said you paid $700, but where's the rest? What rest? I paid $700, that's all. Violet, don't lie. I know you went to the clinic last week. I went to apologize. So what? So, what if the cash register was open after you left? I don't know what you're talking about. And stop accusing me of everything. She hung up. Mrs. White looked at me sympathetically. Claire, I understand that this is difficult for you, but the evidence is clear. It wasn't me. It was my sister. Do you have proof? I didn't have any proof. I just knew that Violet was capable of doing something like that. No, I replied quietly. I'm very sorry. Pack your things. I went to my desk and put my personal belongings in a box, a mug, a photo frame, a makeup bag. My colleagues looked at me with curiosity and sympathy. What happened? Linda asked. It's a long story, I replied. When I left the clinic, I knew one thing. This wasn't going to end just like that. Violet had gone too far, and this time, I wasn't going to back down. For the first 3 days after I was fired, I just lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. I didn't eat. I hardly slept. I didn't answer my phone. I felt like my world had completely fallen apart. I had no job, no money. I was accused of theft. And my sister, who had set the whole thing up, was playing the innocent victim. On the 4th day, Linda called me. Claire, are you alive? I'm worried. I'm alive, I replied in a hoarse voice. Can I come over? An hour later, Linda was sitting on my couch with a bag of groceries, looking at me with concern. You look terrible. Thanks for the honesty. Claire, what really happened at the clinic? I told her everything. About Violet, her disfigured face, the theft. Linda listened intently. And you're sure it was her? Absolutely. Then we have to prove it. How? I don't have any evidence. Linda thought for a moment. Are there any cameras at the clinic? There's a camera at the entrance, but the footage is only kept for a week. How many days have passed since her visit? 5? Then the footage should still be there. We need to check it. Mrs. White won't let me in. Do you know the security guard? Jimmy had been working as a security guard at the clinic for 10 years. He was a kind old man who always gave me candy. I know him. He likes you. Maybe he can help you look at the records. In the morning, I went to the clinic. Jimmy was sitting in his usual spot by the entrance, reading the newspaper. Claire! He smiled. How are you, dear? Terrible, Jimmy. I got fired. I know. Mrs. White told me. I don't believe you could have stolen it. I didn't steal it. Jimmy, can you help me? Anything I can do. I need to see the security footage from last Thursday. Jimmy frowned. Why? I think I know who really took the money. But I need proof. He looked at me for a long time, then nodded. Mrs. White's in a meeting. We've got half an hour. We went to the security room where the monitors were. Jimmy turned on the recording from last Thursday. What time are you looking for? From noon to 2 o'clock. Lunch break. He fast-forwarded to the right moment. There I was, leaving the clinic for lunch. 15 minutes later, Violet appeared on the screen with a bag of food. Is that your sister? Jimmy asked. Yes. We watched Violet go into the clinic. Then the recording sped up. Nothing interesting was happening. Until the moment I returned from lunch. Stop, I said. Rewind. Jimmy rewound. The screen showed Violet leaving the clinic 5 minutes before my return. But most importantly, she was carrying a bag that she didn't have when she went in. See? I pointed to the screen. She went in without a bag and came out with one. Right. Jimmy nodded. What's in the bag? Money from the cash register, of course. Jimmy copied the recording onto a flash drive and handed it to me. I hope this helps you. Thanks, Jimmy. You saved me. With the flash drive in my pocket, I drove straight to the police station. The same Sergeant Brown, who had taken my first statement about Violet, looked at me in surprise. You again? What is it this time? I want to report a theft. Again? Again. Against my sister. I told him everything and showed him the recording. Sergeant Brown watched the video several times. Convincing, he said. But it may not be enough for court. Why? The bag is not proof that there was money in it. You need additional evidence. What kind? Well, for example, witnesses who saw her spending large amounts of money after the theft, or traces of money in her home. I remembered Violet's surgery. What if I know what she spent the money on? Tell me. I told him about the plastic surgery, about how Violet claimed she only paid $700, even though such procedures cost much more. Interesting. The sergeant wrote something down in his notebook. Where did she have the surgery done? At some underground doctor's. Maybe he can confirm that she paid more than she said. We'll have to find him. Do you know his name or address? No, but we can try to find out from Violet. Sergeant Brown smiled. I don't think she'll be very cooperative. But we'll try other methods. A week later, the police called me. Detective Johnson reported that they had found the doctor who had performed Violet's surgery. His name is Roderick Smith, and he's not a doctor. said the detective. He's a former orderly who was fired for stealing medicine. He performs plastic surgery in the basement of his house. And what did he say? That your sister paid him $3,500 in cash for lip augmentation, Botox injections, and cheek fillers. 3,500, I repeated. Not 700. That's right. And he kept the money because he wanted to buy new equipment. The bills still have serial numbers that match those missing from your clinic. I felt such relief that I almost cried. What happens next? Tomorrow we're arresting your sister. Prepare for a trial. Violet was arrested the next morning. My mother called me in hysterics. Claire, what have you done? They took Violet. I didn't do anything. Violet took herself away when she stole the money. But she's sick. Look at her face. She needs help, not jail. Mom, she's a criminal. And not for the first time. How can you say that about your sister? It's easy, especially after she almost killed me and then got me fired from my job. Mom started crying. Claire, please withdraw the complaint. We'll find the money, we'll pay it back. Just don't let her go to jail. No. No, what? I'm not dropping the charges. She has to take responsibility for her actions. But she's your sister. Not my sister, I reminded her. You told me that yourself. Mom fell silent. Claire, it doesn't matter if she's related or not. She's part of our family. She was part of it before she started hating me for not being her blood. She doesn't hate you. She does, Mom. And you know it. I hung up. The trial lasted 3 months. Violet hired a lawyer who tried to prove that she was mentally ill and didn't know what she was doing. Experts were brought in to talk about depression and body dysmorphia, but the evidence was too strong. The camera footage, the doctor's testimony, the bills with the numbers, everything pointed to her guilt. The defendant is found guilty of grand theft, said the judge. Taking into account her previous offenses and mental state, I sentence her to 2 years in prison. Violet started crying. So did my mom. But I just felt relieved. After the trial, my mom came up to me in the hallway. I hope you're happy, she said coldly. Yes, I'm happy. You ruined your sister's life. She destroyed her own life, and she almost destroyed mine. She's sick, Claire. She needed help, not punishment. I offered her help. Many times. But she chose a different path. My mother looked at me with such hatred that it made me feel sick. I don't know who you've become, Claire, but you're not the daughter I raised. Maybe I've become who I was meant to be all along. Mom turned away and walked away. Dad was waiting for me outside the courthouse. How's it going? He asked. Fine. Mom's mad. I know. We got into his car. Claire, he said when we were seated, there's something I want you to know about your real parents. What? They didn't just abandon you. They died. I turned to him abruptly. What? Car accident. Your father was drunk driving. They hit a tree on their way to pick you up from kindergarten. What about me? You weren't in the car. You stayed at the kindergarten, waiting. The teacher waited until evening, then called the police. I was silent, trying to comprehend what I had heard. Why didn't you tell me? We thought it was too cruel for a child. We decided to say that they had abandoned you. It seemed like the gentler option. Gentler? Finding out that your parents abandoned you? At the time, it seemed that way. Maybe we were wrong. I looked out the window at the people leaving the courthouse. Among them was a family, a mother, father, and 2 children. They were laughing about something, walking hand in hand. "Dad," I said, "if Violet hadn't found out I was adopted, would our relationship be different?" "I don't know. Maybe." "Did you really love me more?" Dad was silent for a long time. "Not more. Differently. We loved you like a rescued child. Violet, like a gift from nature. Maybe we did pay more attention to you. We were afraid you would feel unloved. But in the end, Violet felt unloved." "Yes, and that's our fault." We sat in silence for a long time. "What are you going to do now?" Dad asked. "Look for a job. Maybe move to another city. Far away." "I don't know. We'll see." Dad nodded. "Claire, I want you to know that no matter what happens, you will always be my daughter, and I am proud of you." "For what?" "For finally standing up for yourself." A month later, I found a job at a beauty clinic in a neighboring state. It wasn't a very prestigious position, and the salary was lower than what I had been earning. But it was a new beginning. I rented a small apartment, bought some basic furniture, and settled into my new job. Gradually, my life began to fall into place. My mother didn't call me. My father called once a week to tell me the news, but he avoided talking about Violet. I understood that my family had finally broken up, but for the first time in many years, I felt at peace. No one asked me for money, blamed me for anything, or tried to make me feel guilty for their problems. A year later, on the anniversary of the trial, I received a letter. The envelope had a prison stamp on it. I stared at it for a long time, holding it in my hands. Violet must have written it, asking for forgiveness and promising to change. The standard set of phrases that people write from prison. A year ago, I would have read it. Maybe I would have even believed it and replied. But now, I went to the kitchen trash can and threw the letter away without opening it. The sun was shining outside the window. There was a cup of coffee on the table that I had bought for myself just because I wanted it. No one had asked me for money. No one had blamed me for anything. No one had made me feel guilty for their problems. I was free, and that feeling was the most beautiful gift I had ever given myself. The phone rang. It was Dad. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you?" "I'm fine, Dad." "Very good. What are you doing?" "Living." I smiled. "Just living."